Welcome along to another edition of Ask GCN Anything. This week I'm joined by Katherine. Those of you who watched the GCN Show this week will have been introduced, but for those who haven't, Katherine runs our social media, but is also currently preparing and training for a 200-mile gravel ride called the Dirty Kanza in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, and in this week's GCN Show, we asked you, is gravel the new road? This certainly divided opinion, not only here at GCN, but also in the comments, as we found amongst you there were the die-hard roadies right the way through to some very enthusiastic gravel riders.
Yeah, we got a massive response to this, didn't we? And as you said, not everyone's into their gravel riding. For example, Laughing Saint 66, who wrote, "Whenever you talk about gravel riding, I fall asleep." But anyway, we'll disregard that comment and carry on with the ones that we did have from people that are looking to get into it or already into gravel riding. Starting with Tom R. Any tips on how you plan a good gravel ride? Is it local knowledge or can you just work it out from an OS map and ride? An OS map being an Ordnance Survey map, which I think is fairly specific to the UK. It's very detailed with contour lines and loads of other information that's really useful for us as cyclists.
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think it's one that you get quite a lot with people who are just looking and getting into gravel riding. I think if you're getting into other disciplines, like just getting into mountain biking, you might go along to a local trail centre. If you're just getting into road riding, you might join a local club and try and find out the best local routes around there. It's a bit more tricky when it comes to gravel.
Yeah, if you're into forums, you can always start a thread or look at other threads local to you. We're sure you'll find some information on there. But as Katherine's just alluded to, it's always best to get local knowledge. So if you can find someone that goes out on their gravel bike quite regularly, that's the best way, just as it is with mountain biking or road riding, really.
I think that's half the beauty of it for me with the gravel riding is it's a bit of trial and error. You're always finding new routes to ride and new places to explore.
Yeah, that is part of it, exploration, isn't it? And it's just nice to sometimes head out and find new gravel roads. Sometimes they don't go anywhere, other times you can piece together a really nice ride. But just make sure that you are riding somewhere that you are allowed to by law, otherwise you can get yourself into all sorts of problems, can't you? Next up, Theodore Kincaid. Dear Katherine, do you try to keep your position the same between your road and your gravel bike? If so, how do you adapt the gravel frame to mimic your road setup? It's an interesting one, this, isn't it? Because you can use exactly the same position as your road bike, and when we look at riders doing Strada Bianca, they don't really make many changes at all. But I think and understand that you have changed it a bit.
Yeah, certainly for me, I find that when I'm riding road, I have a much more aggressive position. So I'll be much lower on the front end, have much narrower handlebars, sort of to replicate the width of my shoulders. So I'll be riding on 38s. Whereas if I'm going off-road, I tend to have a wider handlebar, maybe a 40 or a 42, gives a bit more in terms of steering on the front. And I tend to shift my weight slightly further back on the bike, putting a bit more emphasis through the saddle and down through the bottom bracket. But it's personal, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, it depends what you want out of it, really. I mean, many people are using gravel bikes because of the extra comfort they provide, often just on the road. If you want to go as fast as possible, your road position is probably best. Yeah. But for a 200-mile Dirty Kanza event, comfort is probably your top priority. Next up, this is from Velo Rider KM. Road style lycra or baggy kit for gravel grinding? This is actually a question we put out to our viewers on the GCN Show this week, and we once again had a variety of responses. Plenty of you that just stick to lycra, lots of people going for baggy clothing as well. Personally speaking, I stick with lycra for gravel riding, but then I use lycra for mountain biking and really get ribbed for it a lot, but I don't care.
Yeah, I think that's again part of the attraction of gravel. There's no rules really, so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, just whatever's comfortable to you. Don't take any notice of what people say to you. I certainly don't. You should read the comments. Next up from Knife Nate S. This is an example. I wear standard road kit for gravel riding. I ride a cyclist bike for a bit more speed. The next question though comes once again from Velo Rider KM, who asks, tubeless or tubes? It's quite a big one in the off-road world, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think if you look at mountain biking at one end of the spectrum, tubeless has been not only widely accepted but also widely used for a number of years now, whereas on road it's sort of very far behind. I think in gravel it's somewhere in between, but it's certainly got a number of benefits.
Yeah, of course, riding tubeless, you've got less chance of pinch puncture. You get no chance of pinch puncture, you've got no inner tubes, have you? And there's other benefits to that as well, in terms of the fact that if you do get like a piece of a thorn or a piece of metal through your tyre, in general, the sealant will be good enough to allow you to continue without losing much pressure at all. That said, I'm quite scared of setting my bike up tubeless, in that I don't really know how to do it, despite watching size videos, etc. So I'm still old school with tubes. Right, next up we have this from Tom Palfrey. How much slower do gravel tyres roll on roads rather than smooth road tyres? Interesting question, that.
Yeah, and it's one that we've already addressed, actually. We thought this one deserved a bit of science. A bit of GCN does science.
Yeah.
So you should check out this one where Matt and Cy put their bikes to the test.
So what are we expecting to see then? Well, the gravel bike is going to be a little bit slower. And that is partly because it weighs a bit more. So about 1 kilo over Matt's road bike and pushing 2 kilos over mine. But I think it's the tyres that could make the biggest difference.
Moving on to the quick fire round now, we've got our first question in here from Mark Teakle. Does falling off on gravel hurt more than falling off on bitumen? And can you run an experiment for us fans to let us know?
No. Not an experiment. In answer to the first part of that question, I don't know if it hurts more, but it does hurt. Speaking from personal experience, back when I was about 18 or 19, I was practicing a mountain bike national point series course up in County Durham in the north of England. Came out of a really technical section onto a big fire road descent, took a drink, my front wheel hit a big stone and I wiped out at probably about 50 kilometers per hour. Those are some of the results. I won't show you where the rest of them are. It hurts a lot, especially when they scrubbed the gravel out without giving me a strong enough anaesthetic and I could feel it all. That said, I've hurt myself equally on the road really as well. I know Katherine has also come off on gravel and it scarred her both physically and mentally, so she doesn't really want to talk about it. So we'll move on to this one from Aidan Keeley. Do you use your mountain bike shoes or your road riding shoes when gravel riding?
That's a simple one. Mountain bike shoes, all the way.
Yeah, not a lot of grip if you have to get off on gravel with road shoes, are there? And you also do them a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Scratch all the carbon soles if you've got them, etc. as well. So there's one, as Katherine said, only one answer to that one.
Yeah,
which tyre tread pattern do you recommend for a gravel bike that is often used on tarmac? That coming in from Lucas.
That's a really good one because often people are using their gravel bikes not only for off-road but also as a second commuting bike, for example. You're looking for something with a very smooth centre line or sometimes a raised ridge. That'll give you much less rolling resistance when you are on the road. But then when you look at the shoulder of the tyres, you're looking for something with a bit more of an aggressive tread pattern so that when you are cornering or taking it off-road, then you do get a bit more grip.
Yeah, if you do stick to just gravel, it's surprising how much grip you get with a completely smooth centre to the tyres. Only really when you get to very muddy sections or rooty sections that you need something with a lot more grip. Right then, sorry, it's very small font. Havor Gurdjieff, really mullered that, I'm sure. It's probably many times safer to ride and train on gravel. Yes, it's more of a statement actually, this one. I picked this out because I was talking to Katherine before we started this. Had I had my time again as a professional cyclist, I reckon that over the winter months, I would have set up a gravel bike in exactly the same position as my road bike and spent a lot of time training on that, because when it's icy on the roads and too dangerous to go on them, I've got loads of gravel riding around me in the New Forest and I could have easily pieced together like a 15-mile circuit. You know, there's the added benefit as well as grip that there's no junctions, there's no traffic. You know, the only thing I need to slow down for are horses, basically. So I could have got some really good training done, I think. And it is, as you said, a lot safer as well. I'll let you answer this one, Katherine. Saddle pack or handlebar bag if I was to choose just one?
That's a great question. I think it depends what kind of ride you're going on. If you're just going on a short one and you need the bare essentials, so like tubes, gas or pump and a tyre lever, a little saddle bag is really helpful. If you're looking to go a bit further and you don't want to stow your snacks in your back pockets, something like a handlebar bag or a frame pack where you can access it whilst you're riding. Or if you're going full bike packing, then maybe a seat post bag out the back. You can stow a lot more in one of those.
Yeah. I only use a saddle bag, but that's because I'm not training for a 200-mile event. I only do about an hour at a time these days. I'm going to finish actually with a statement in the quickfire round from Stephen Moore. Forget off-road gravel bikes are becoming forget off-road gravel bikes are becoming necessary just to ride on the London Surrey roads due to the state of them. And that was a comment that was replicated by a number of viewers, just saying that they're just so much more comfortable given the roughness of many roads, well, around the world really. There's very few smooth roads left.
Next up, we've got a question from James Kendrick. He's asking, what modifications, if any, should I make to my road bike to be able to ride on gravel roads and tracks without ruining my road bike?
We don't have to make any changes whatsoever. We talked about Strada Bianca earlier, didn't we? And the road racers there don't really make any changes, almost even to the tyres when they're doing that race, even though there are a lot of gravel roads and they can be the decisive factor. What we would say is to fit the largest volume tyres that your frame set will accommodate. So that depends on what bike that you're currently running. That will make things a bit more comfortable for you and also reduce your risks of punctures. In terms of the road bike itself, you will find that stones on gravel roads do flick up and hit the down tube underneath and also the back of the seat tube. So if you're particularly precious about that, you might want to do something to protect them. But you can use your road bike on gravel roads. It's surprising just how resilient they are.
Yeah, up to a point. As I think you found out in this one, Dan, where road bikes versus gravel bikes.
Yeah, what's the difference? Yeah, they took it a bit gnarly on me.
If you've got the feeling that I'm a little bit sceptical about all road bikes, then you'd be right. So I'm going to tackle Cy's so-called epic ride on my road bike, whilst Matt and Cy are going to ride their new Ridley X-Trails. They're kind of like road bikes, but with clearance for wider tyres, a bit more stability, practicality, and SRAM 1x drivetrains for reliability.
The next question is most definitely directed at you, Katherine, from Robert_MN. For a race like the Dirty Kanza, what are your strategies for carrying the necessary food and water? What tasks do you give your support crew beyond just handing you more food and drink? I should remind you all that Katherine hasn't actually done the Dirty Kanza yet, so you are kind of a novice at this.
Absolutely.
Can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm sure you've got preparation points in mind for you and your support crew.
Yeah, I mean, I've been speaking to a few people who've done the event before. One person last year said that they went through 21 bottles of water in the whole event last year. So that's with a stop every 50 miles. That's 4 bottles between every stop. So I haven't got it quite dialed in yet, but any suggestions for how to carry that much water on your bike and also sort of top tips for support crews, I think would be much appreciated.
Yeah, how are you training for that? Presumably you're having to find places to fill your water bottles up when you're doing your long rides at the moment.
Yeah, riding around in the UK, I think a lot of the gravel is sort of interspersed with lanes, villages. I tend to find churches are pretty good for finding taps or village halls.
I see like the taps outside where they water the flowers to put them on the graves.
Yeah,
bit dark there, but it does work. I remember learning that for the first time when I was riding around France. Yeah. Finally, for this week's Ask GCN Anything, Tristram Wilson says the gravel guys are nailing our dirt road KOMs, previously mountain bike terrain. I wonder if Strava will create another category. What do you reckon?
I don't think so. I think if it's human powered under your own steam and you're the fastest.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's all for the job, really.
If you're on a road bike or any bike and it's not an e-bike, then any segment's kind of there for you, isn't it? It's a bit like time trials on flat roads. It's just going to go faster because the bike's more efficient. Just go and find some more gnarly KOMs to take on your mountain bike and leave the nice easy ones for the gravel riders. Right. Thanks for all your questions this week. Sorry if we didn't get around to answering them. And thanks to you as well, Katherine, for joining us. I'm sure we will be checking back in with Katherine as she prepares for the Dirty Kanza. And also, of course, while she's there as well, we'll be bringing a lot of videos back from that particular event. In the meantime, if you didn't catch this week's GCN show where we asked you, is gravel the new road? You can find that just down here.